Hello, Instagram and YouTube following. I'm gonna keep this intro short and simple. My name is Lucian, but my art handle is Lotion3D. I make 3D art and stuff like that. Anyways, some people on Instagram. Thank you guys for all the exposure, by the way. But some people on Instagram wanted tutorials and assets on my latest two renders. I think one of them's called Yakuri City, and then one of them's called Trans. I'm gonna start the tutorial on those right now, starting with Trans.
Don't you mean tonight?
So here is the behind the scenes of it. This is everything. Some of these assets are custom made by me. Some of them I got from some other people. Some of these I bought, like this one I bought, but I textured myself. And then some of these are from Patreon that I'm subscribed to. But I guess I'll start with how I got the idea of this. A while ago, I was going through Pinterest for inspiration, and I found this image right here from Akira. In my head, I was like, I want to recreate that. It's super cool. Whenever I watch like these type of scenes with these huge buildings, whenever the bike is driving towards the city, it feels as if the buildings are never getting any smaller because of just how big they are. And I kind of wanted to recreate that feeling in this one. So it's a little unorthodox. So in the scene, there's a bike that's driving towards the city. But out of everything that's in this render, the only thing that is not moving is the bike itself. The highway is the actual thing that's moving backwards, and so are the buildings next to it and everything. The bike itself never moves. I'm just moving the highway, and that's kind of what gives the buildings in the back that huge scale, because they're not moving themselves. Just the buildings in the foreground and the highway itself. So the first thing that I started with in this render was, I think I built a block out of like a highway and then a bike. But the first thing I built was this highway. It wasn't too hard to build. It's like really low poly. Yeah, it's like not even that crazy. It's like really, really simple stuff. It's just the texturing that I put a lot of work into. I think this is just a simple like concrete texture right here. And then I got this texture I got from textures.com. It's like this grunge like concrete kind of texture. I don't know. But I just mixed them together with a simple color ramp, and it just gives it a little more oomph. And this was really easy to make. I just looked up pictures online of highway guardrails, and I just simple modeling. Put little lights on top. There's nothing too. Here, let me make this bigger. This is the model itself. If you want to look at a closer detail on it. And the texture itself is also not too hard either. Yeah, it's really just like a metal pipe texture I got from textures.com as well. It was like red and rusted, but I just turned it down with saturation. Like it was this color. I turned down all the saturation to just make it black and white, and then with the other textures on top makes it look gray. And then this right here, I think I got from, I have an add-on, Extreme PBR. I like using this add-on. But it has tons of textures. I think it was $50 at the time that I got it. But it has a lot of great textures that I use in all of my projects. Yeah, that's really all I did. I just applied that simple texture. And then I just used an array modifier. After the array modifier, I just really simple keyframe of just the highway moving backwards. These are from Kit Bash. These ones are also from a Patreon. This is from Lazaro 45 on Instagram. He's a huge inspiration for a lot of the renders that I make, so shouts out to him. And then some of these buildings I bought a pack of 50 buildings a long time ago, and when I got the pack, I textured all of the buildings myself. Some of these textures I just found online. So for these buildings and the Kit Bash buildings and the paid buildings, same thing in the highway, I just keyframed them to move backwards to make it look as if the bike is moving. Yeah, with the pack of these buildings, I just made a black plane, and I stretched it to fit the scene, and then I used an add-on called Geoscatter to scatter all the buildings. I use Geoscatter a lot I know it's meant for like like nature scenes or more like organic scenes, I guess, and not more sci-fi. But I guess I've been using it a lot recently for sci-fi, and it still works fine. So after I scattered them onto the plane, then I just got the plane itself, and same thing with these buildings. Keyframe them and move backwards. These buildings I forget where I got them from. They're literally in the frame for like less than a second, and you can barely even see them. But these are good background buildings. I got this a while ago. I think it was like Cityscape Hack or whatever. I think it was on ArtStation. But then when I got these, I just again textured them myself. And yeah, same thing, same spiel. Now we can move on to the camera movement. And camera movement was a little tricky to get. Like I said earlier, the bike itself doesn't actually move, so it makes moving the camera a lot easier for me. But the camera, here are the camera settings. It's just really simple stuff. 35mm perspective, depth of field a little bit. The depth field changes a little bit, and then I am using Ian Hubert's Shakeify camera Shakeify add-on to add that shaky effect like that. It's very subtle, but it's there, and it adds a lot more detail. But the camera movement itself is literally just following a spline that I made to go over the bike and stop right here. There was a setting I remember when I made the spline originally and the camera was following it, it kept like going into the ground and going on forever. Clicking the clamp setting helps with that, so it just kind of stops it right there. So that's I just found that out when I was making this render. And then so that's just the movement for the camera moving around the bike. For the camera actually looking at the bike, I have the camera using a track modifier tracking to this empty cube right here, and as the camera is moving, and so is the cube. So the cube is looking at the front of the bike, and then when it gets behind the bike, the cube moves up into the city. The bike wasn't too hard. I found this bike online and same with the dude. I just placed them in there and positioned him to be riding the bike, and then I parented the bike and the person to an empty, so it was easier to move. And then I just made the empty move, I guess how a bike would move, from watching videos online of how bikes move and stuff like that. And yeah, really simple stuff. And there is like this jittery shakiness to the bike that I wanted to add. I opened up the graph editor and I went to the empty and I went to object crayons and I clicked on the Z location, so it only moves the up and down. And I gave it a noise modifier, and I made it very subtle, like very subtle, little bumps here and there. But it gives it that fast moving jitteriness to it, and that's it for the highway setup right there. That's it for the foreground elements. Now for the actual background, the cool part. This was a majority of this was just carefully placing buildings where I want them and lights where I want them. Some of these assets I got from Lazaro. Shout out to him again. Some of these assets I bought online. These were, I think, like this whole pack was only like $10. Again, textured myself and everything. Same with this one right here. But then for these closer ones, I modeled myself, and I will put in the description for everyone. I don't know why there's missing textures. That's really weird. So here are the custom made assets that I got, that I made myself. I used Max Hayworth's method of creating skyscrapers, watching his tutorial. Not too high poly. For the skyscraper, for like the actual like stuff on the building, it's like really like janky. But adding like detail on there, I feel like would make it a little too high poly. And almost unusable in some situations, and especially for far situations. So I literally just found online pictures of the tops of skyscrapers and like this, like the gravel that's on them. Found images of them, image planes, and I just kind of stick them in order that would just make sense and that would look nice. And from afar, you barely even notice that they're just 2D planes. Like they look pretty. They pass. But yeah, no, these I will be putting these 3 models on Gumroad, and you guys can use them however you want. And then the fog setup is really easy. It's not very complicated at all. But using this fog setup in this specific render taught me the importance of the entropy and an entropy. I don't know how do you say that, but it taught me the importance of this slider. This slider can really make or break a render. I'm starting to find that out. So here's how the slider affects the fog and the glow of scenes. I feel like this is a tip that is not shared enough to newer people that are coming to Blender. So you'll create a simple setup for volume scatter, nothing crazy, and then you'll have it something really low. Like I'll have it on 0.010 for this time, maybe 0.02. I don't know. 0.1's better. But anyways, yeah, no, this is perfect. It's perfect. So you'll have a volume setup like this for fog. And usually most tutorials for that glowy effect, they'll be like, here, put it like 500. You know, it'll give it that glow effect. But this only works for certain scenes. If you're trying to get a certain look, a more, I guess, cinematic look, stuff is usually never this foggy or glowed up, I guess. In most scenes, could kind of give like a halation look. It'll be cranked up a little bit more. So what this does, it concentrates the light in the fog to the actual emitter. You see that? So now the fog is only concentrated around the emission plane. But if I crank it down more, it spreads out more and it picks up more of the fog. But having it at just the right sweet spot makes it look like that. And me personally, I like this look, and it's the type of look I went for this render right here. Now for the next part, the glow in like the center of where the highway is actually going to, it's not hard at all. It's literally just image planes. That's all it is. It's just image planes with the color plugged into the alpha and the color also plugged into the emission with a little bit of a blue tint to it. See, it's more noticeable right there. And then it's just a whole bunch of that just stack onto each other. And that's really just about it. I think I found this picture like on Pinterest. There's like some cool sci-fi art that someone made. And same with the background buildings. So I have like some signs that I have up here, some neon signs. These were literally just from textures.com. Here's the image right here. These are literally just from textures.com. Again, plugged into the alpha emission and I placed them where I want them, and they looked pretty passable. They look pretty good. Here we got some more image planes to kind of fill in that back area right there. See, big difference. Again, right here. Nothing, not like too noticeable like that, but just peeking in, so it looks good. And then the next part, in the render, there are like these moving like spotlights, like giant sky spotlights in the image. In the render, they're a really easy setup. At first, what I tried doing was I tried using actually like a spotlight light, like 3D light in Blender, and I made the spot size super small. I'm not super small, like a little small like that. Blend up like around there, and I cranked up the power like super far, like 10 million or something like that. But it just wasn't looking good exactly how I wanted it. So I actually used a better method in my opinion. I just went online and I just typed in spotlight black background. And I just scrolled here for like a little bit until I found one that I liked. I think the one I used was literally this one right here, and I just put it in the blender and I just stretched it out. Like I just made it super stretched like that. I gave it a little blue tint and it was good as background. And then really simple, easy keyframe moving from left to right on this pivot point right here. And I just scattered them around the whole render there's one over here, there's one over here, there's two over here. And that is what gave that moving spotlight look. And it looks great in the final image. It looks a lot better than I expected. The whole floor is a blue plane, just simple emission. I think the texture, it was really just using JS placement. I think that's what it's called. something like that. I just generated some nice Greevil and then projected it onto the plane. Gave it a mission and like a blue mission, and put at the bottom, and it made it very subtle. I think it's like barely noticeable in the final render, because the thing that actually lights up the backgrounds are the spotlights, not the spotlights, the point lights, and not the actual ground itself. So it's barely noticeable, but it gives it, I guess, a nice touch. I don't know. And after I put all the image planes of the city, the actual assets itself, I stacked them up on top of each other, just like the Akira image, to where like you can't even see the sky anymore. Like all you see is just building, because it's just how big the buildings are. And that's exactly what I did here. Stacked them on top, layered them up like they're on top of a hill, I guess. And only the foreground elements are moving, but anywhere past this point, they are not moving. So you can see the plane is moving, but not these buildings. And that is what gives it this huge scale look. And now for the last part, there were some people, 2 people specifically, that asked how I got the lighting set up. And I want to be 100% honest, it was kind of a fluke, but I did fluke it intentionally though. There's actually a funny story about it, and this image is actually part of that story. So a while ago, I worked on another render, and I was, making it look cool and all, and this is what it was going to look like. This was just a placeholder. It wasn't finished yet, but this is what it was going to look like, and I scrapped it because I was like, I don't like this, and I don't know why I don't like it, but I don't like it. It was going to be animated too. There was going to be flying cars, and like this lady was going to be moving, and all like the signs are moving and everything. But I scrapped it because I was like, there's something about it that I don't like. It feels too, how do you call it? Fake, I guess, but fake in a good way, that it's more stylized, it's more artistic. And there are some people on Instagram that I follow that would love this style, and that's what I followed. But for some reason, I just didn't really like it too much, so I scrapped it. And I was like, man, I need some inspiration to make a new render. So I went to go watch the movie Blade Runner 2049 specifically. But I noticed for a lot of these scenes, there isn't a whole lot of lights and a whole lot of glow, especially for like these in city parts right here. Like there is glow, there is noticeable glow, but there's not too much of it, and also not too little of it. There's a just right amount, and it is dark enough and dim enough to make it feel real. Like these parts right here, I feel like if I was talking to myself a year ago, I would make these really bright and really glow a whole lot. And so for this render, this trans render, I wanted to recreate that as best as I could. And that was the one thing I didn't like about this, because this doesn't scream Blade Runner. This screams artistic cyberpunk, which is not bad, but it wasn't what I was going for. This was what I was going for. And to recreate it, kind of recreate that Blade Runner feel, I dimmed the lights of the buildings really low. Like they're not glowing that much. In the final render, like they're really not that bright. And same with the image planes up here, they're not that bright. And for the lighting behind these buildings, like this yellowish greenish light over here, all that was just, it's just a point light with a greenish kind of glow, with a greenish kind of color to it, with 1,000 milliwatt power. And I just scattered them around the buildings where it would look best. Like in this image, like they're not like the camera isn't directly seeing them, they're just behind the buildings to make it seem like there is something back there. So with the green on top of the blue plane that's down here that you can't see, it gives it kind of this yellowish kind of look to it, and I think it mixes really well with the blue lights and the blue city lights and all the blue right here, the blue spotlights. It mixes really well. And then with the background image, funnily enough, it's the scrap project that I didn't like. I just put it back there, plugged the color into the alpha, plugged the color into the mission. I made it gave it a little blue tint, and it looked pretty good back there. It was barely noticeable, but it works. And then for some of the signs that I have, I think there's only like 2 signs. There's only like this one up here, and then this moving geisha right here. And for the moving geisha, show you where to find these type of videos from. Here, let me show you a video, or I can show you where to find these type of videos from, because I've gotten a lot of stock videos from this website, and it's really nice. So this is a website, it's called Pexels. You can get these free stock videos of just whatever you want. This is the one that I found specifically. Really nice, really high quality, really good stuff. I like the website a lot. And you can also find Cyberpunk stuff on here too. Like there's a whole, I've downloaded this one and used this one before. This one's really nice. Same with this one. And there's just tons and tons and tons of stock videos on here. Like shout out to this website. This website's really good for stock videos like that. There's tons of them. And so I just placed that in there with and to kind of give it that hologram kind of billboard look, what I did was I put in the Voronoi texture. And if you have Node Regular add-on, if you just hit Control T, it adds mapping and texture coordinate, which is really nice. And then the next and final node was a math node. And with the math node, if you put it on less than and plug the distance into the top value, you will get this kind of design, I guess. And if you turn off the randomness on the Voronoi texture and mess with the threshold, you get these white dots right here, just like that. And to kind of just make it look normal and not oval shape, mess with the scale on the mapping node to make it actually look like a circle, so like right around there. That's good. And then to scale them down, just again use the Voronoi texture as far as you want. It doesn't matter. And if it looks weird, mess with the math node a little bit, the value of the math node, to make the circles smaller themselves. And then there you go. And then once you got that, you can get a mixed color node, put the multiply, and plug both the, whatever you want, color or alpha, I think doesn't really matter in this situation. But you plug them both into there, and it comes out like that. And I did that for most of these ones. I don't know if I did it for this one. Oh, not this one. That's not a sign right there. And that's really the whole setup. And that's really the whole render right there. And then yeah, of course, always just there's no world. I think, is there a world? I don't even remember if there is a world. Oh, there is a world. I didn't even know about this. I think this was really just an HDRI I got from here. The add-on is called Blender Kit. There's a website for it. But you can get the add-on for Blender, and if you sign up for, I think it's like a monthly subscription, you can get all these locked ones for free. But there is a free selection, and the free selection is really nice. I use these HDRIs a lot, but I made it super low. I think it was at 0.1. I think it was. Yeah, it was super. It's barely even noticeable. You can barely even see it. And in the end, you don't even see the HDRI itself because it's blocked up by the buildings. So, and then here's the noise I have. I think 650, 1920 by 1080, the usual. Turned on motion blur. Didn't change any of the settings. The motion blur is all the same. And yeah, that is pretty much it for this trans render. And yeah, that's all that together, jam packed, gives me this. And then after I had the final footage, I brought it into DaVinci Resolve, and here are the only things for the effects, I added a little JPEG damage, because not all movies are like super high quality, but it's like barely noticeable. Like, you can barely even notice it. And then the next one was a simple glow. I turned down the threshold a little bit. You see that right there, how that changes it. And then a vignette, a simple vignette. I made it a little light, like around, I think like 850 is good. And then after that, I use a prism blur to kind of give a chromatic aberration look, but it's barely even noticeable. Like, you can see on these lights right here, the red, yellow, and blue. It's barely noticeable. And then on YouTube, I found a stock grain noise video that I used as an overlay. You can see it right here. I just put it into overlay mode, and it looked great as is. I didn't have to mess with the opacity or anything. And then as for the sound effects, I spent hours upon hours on YouTube just searching up sound effects of just different stuff, like motorcycle, or like city ambience, or like city billboards and stuff like that. Cyberpunk city sounds. I just spent hours and hours searching for sound effects until it compiled all the best ones that I liked. So the first one I used was this one right here. I forgot what this audio was, but I think I slowed it down. I think it was just a bike moving in a highway sound effect. And then the next one was this one right here. Just a motorcycle. And then I replayed the last part and slowed it down a little bit, so I just had it repeating. And then a third motorcycle sound effect. This one is a little bit more consistent, and I think I like this one the most out of the three. The first sound effect kind of gives it that Doppler effect, and then the third and second sound effect kind of give it that consistent moving bike speed. And then for the fifth audio, I think I found on YouTube just like police siren, and I put that in there. It's barely noticeable, but it's there. For the sixth sound effect, I think it's another motorcycle sound effect. But this one was, I think this was actually a video, a POV video of some dude driving through traffic on his motorcycle. So I ripped that, and it worked perfectly here. And then seventh sound effect, I think this was actually, I looked up online, Cyberpunk 2077. Yes, the game. I think it was like driving through Night City ambience on motorcycle. And I just grabbed a clip from the middle of like that hour-long video and put it in there, and it worked great. Because you can also hear the ambience of the city and the noises in the background. It worked perfectly here. And then for 8, I think it's also Cyberpunk 2077 sound effects. And then the last sound effect is again more Night City sound effects. Just Night City ambience. And all of them together make up a nice conglomerate of SFX. And I think that is it for trance, really. Like, there's really nothing more to this. I'm not a professional at giving tutorials, so I'm sorry if I missed some things or glossed over some things too quickly. But yeah, that is the behind the scenes of how I created trance.
Can I see you tomorrow night? Sure. But don't you mean tonight?